Trip to Greenland, and I've been there 6 times, 7 times now, so the reason I keep going back there is because it ticks all the boxes for me. It's remote, it's got amazing wildlife, it's got 24 hours of daylight, so when we go climbing even I can't be benighted, and you know, the indigenous population are very small, but even though the settlements are small, they're just very interesting, sort of reserved people. So it's just a fascinating place, and you know, it's such a massive continent, it's never a shortage of places to go back to. Hey, hello, Manchester United fan. Tuk-tuk.
Ja, ich gestern mal gerne gesprochen.
Roll, zieh, her, rein. Na, warum?
Once you actually leave that community and either go onto the open sea, then actually you're on your own. You know, most of the times and most of the trips I've been, I've seen nobody, or very rare encounters with possibly a yacht who's sailing around, or depending on where you are, a local fisherman. But often some of them are more committing coasts, they don't go themselves because they're fishing.
Bit lumpy, yeah. I'll see where we're turn and go with it a bit now, though, so it shouldn't be so wobbly. We'll see how we get on and find somewhere to get in. That's going to be the problem next week. Not too bad though. I think the wind's dropped a bit, so it might drop off now.
Just
because we were paddling into it before.
We're out in the open ocean now though as well, isn't it? So just that swell from that. Anyway. Right.
Yeah, my initial involvement in the expedition was directly through Ollie, who sort of hinted almost that would have liked to go. And he went from there really. It took a little while for us to get to confirm things and make sure that both of us were compatible, and that the complications of life would survive, given that I was just about to move house and had not long had my second son. But yeah, it was just a friend asking a friend to go on a trip, I felt, and it worked really well in the end.
Towards the island.
Hey?
Heading towards the island. So the wildlife encounters you have in Greenland, you know, some of them are just spectacular because they're just amazing animals. I've had encounters with narwhal, minke whale, and then you know then there's the dangers associated with some of the other types. So muskox and obviously polar bears are the main source of worry when you go away. So you have to carry a gun, and you just have to accept the fact that's part of the trip. You know, in all the trips I've had, I've only had one trip where we've had major incidents with bears. But you've got to be realistic the fact that, you know, if you carry a gun, then you've got to be prepared to use it, and you know, that's just the reality of going to these places. It's part of the whole package, part of the reason you go there, and you know, part of the reality of a wild, untamed holiday.
So here we have a claw mark here, and then another big rip here, and he's trying to claw in just down there, and trying to foot his nose through the tent to get to our pack of food, and then he ran off at sort of high speed really, which is good for us. Let's see if we have the gun ready. So £200 well spent. Yeah, very well spent, Simon, isn't it?
Yeah, the bear incident. It's funny, a few people asked me about whether I was scared about that one, and my sort of explanation of that is there's two types of scared. There's the there and then being really scared because of the imminent danger, but the polar bear incident was different. It's because it was unreal. I've got nothing to relate it to in a situation like that, so it was hard to understand initially, and it actually felt quite matter of fact at the time. But yeah, with hindsight or in reflection, it was a really sort of potentially quite dangerous incident. You know, we were quite exposed, no help around us, and if that bear had attacked while we were asleep or while we weren't prepared, then well, you know, who knows what the consequences could have
He
been.
had the hatch covering his mouth. Yeah, she's dropped it. Yeah. So we need to go and get that. It's just over there.
Where is it? On this side of the water.
Other side, unfortunately.
On?
Other side. So this is how you want to show us that, Simon. So
You can see in the light there, like you see a line of teeth marks, like which must be the bear prying the lid off my boat. And here, the pesky things have put a big hole in my lid, which I've only just spotted today. So I've had a bit of a leaky hatch for a few days. So I'm just going to shoe glue that and see if I can stop it leaking.
The bear incident. So we had a gun which we had in the tent. I'm reasonably familiar with firearms, and the incident was a bit surreal because the bear basically came through the tent when we were sleeping through a storm, and shoved its nose to the tent. So it was almost like I didn't really think of using the gun in terms of firing it off. I just used it as a weapon to bang the thing on the nose and shout at it, which it disappeared off after that, and it came back twice more. The final time involving a comedy chase. With a hatch cover that had its mouth, and neither of us having the gun in our hand, and one of us to go back and get the gun. But yeah, I mean, as Simon said before, the reflective side of it, it was like after that we were probably, you know, more concerned about meeting bears, but the actual incident, it was fairly matter of fact. And if I had to use a gun, then I'd use the gun. But you know, it wasn't necessary, which was great this time because it was a mother with two cubs.
Highlights for me, a couple really. One is that, I suppose why we're all there really, is just an amazing view. The one day just looking north towards the North Pole and looking out over northern Greenland, it's just phenomenal. You know, icebergs out to sea, you could see the ice shelf sticking out, and just mountains going away into the distance, and that was just, you know, you could have just sat there for hours and just watched it really. It was just a really, really highlight of my life, let alone of the trip itself. Yeah.
So that was to zoom in a bit, that was the ridge we tried thinking of doing. We get a couple of
I think it's nice stepping into the unknown. It's like fresh tracks in the snow, isn't it? You're going somewhere. The whole thing about it is it's a journey, being self-contained, and within that journey, you're going to try and incorporate the mountaineering side. So you're going to get a different view from the sea and a different view from the mountains.
Yeah, it could be chicks, couldn't they? So the onto the wall, which just zoom in a bit there by Ollie's face, see if you can see it a bit more detail. You see, there is gone, and it wasn't there, on his face. It's going to come back up again now. There again, it's quite a chunk. It's quite a chunk of ice as well. What was that, Ollie? Yeah. Right, the climbing. It wasn't quite what we expected, really. I mean, we had a good recce, used some binoculars to have a good look at the wrist, and it looked good. The quality looked good, and the actual sort of the line of the routes looked good. But yeah, when we got there, it was quite stressful as far as I'm concerned. Really, there was a lot of loose rock, chossy lines, and that uncertainty about if we go a bit further, are we going to get ourselves into difficulties, or is it going to go? We pushed it to the limit, really, I think, on the one, and then we made the sensible decision that the rock quality just wasn't there, and we could get ourselves into some serious sort of retreat type situation if we carried on the main route. Balmy, innit? Wild animal as well.
Putting you can see it here, forcing that plastic bag through the roof there. Do you want to is that I was fucking about with a gun with some blanks trying to get the sequence right, and
Fucking that could have been.
I managed to
Blow a
fucking hole in the roof.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. But yeah, the gun incident at Cape Hogue, sorry. On reflection, could have been very dangerous. Could have been sort of fatal, really. But in the end, it was very amusing. Practicing so that things would go wrong. It's one of those classics. So when things would go right, something went wrong. But fortunately, Ollie, being an experienced person with guns, was pointing the gun in the right direction, and all we did was blow a hole in the roof of the building.
The old sea ice, it hasn't melted yet, I think. And then you have to go way, way out, past all these bergs who want to get up that coast. So it's all packed right in here as well.
Even there's like another shelf out there, isn't there, as well?
So,
have a trip and have a look.
what we're going to do, have to rethink.
Yeah, we'll have a look from the top of the hill tomorrow, can't we?
Yeah, we'll pack another massive, a bit closer than this, so we can save ferrying the gear for miles, but couldn't land at the left hand side of the beach last night because the breakers were really big, so we had to come down this side to find a little gap in the surf to land. So we're a little bit of a longer carry, but so it's not too bad.
So whenever you go on a trip, then you've got, wherever you go in Greenland, it's probably going to be fairly remote, and with that come the consequences of what happens if something goes wrong. You know, how do you get yourself sorted? So, I mean, my personal philosophy is I try and take as little as possible, because in the end of the day, actually, having a sat phone and an EPIRB means that, you know, you can let people know, but the reality of whether they're going to get to you in time is a different matter. However, you know, everybody's going to buy into that, so I'm pretty open to it when I go away with people. If somebody, you know, wants a sat phone because they've got commitments at home, then I'm perfectly happy to have a sat phone along, as long as it stays in a box and it's only used for emergencies. Because I think you don't kid yourself. If you do take those things with you, the whole sense of the trip is different, because it's almost like you've got to get out of jail card. Now that get out of jail card may not work, but it's still there in the box. So you could say that some of the decision making is based on that, whereas you could say it's a little bit naive not to take stuff. But you know, that's the reason we go there. You know, to have adventures and be back in a committing place. So I tend not to take too much stuff if I possibly can, unless.
Seen what, 2 bears?
2 bears today so far, yeah. One of them in a very relaxed condition trying to find us was the look of it there. And then Ollie scared in, he swam away. He swam off into the middle of the Atlantic before we could work out. So yeah, it was quite, considering we came to an island to get away from the bears, we're not doing too well so far. But we've barely found the door, haven't we? We fixed the door, so we should be alright tonight.
Yeah.
You know, decision making on these sort of environments is that you often have to go with your gut feeling. So if you haven't got a mobile or a sat phone, which is what we didn't do, we had to rely on our experience based on the fact we spent a lot of time on the sea and the mountains, and we did come back a few days early on the trip because there was a subtle change in the air. I've had it once in Alaska trying to get up a mountain where we were going to bivvy on the summit, and we decided to go down. It was the same this time. The ocean swell was bigger. There seemed to be darkening clouds, and the pressure was changing slightly. So we were committed to an exposed coast, and we did it in one big hit, and that was the right decision because it went ballistic after that, and we just got in the state of the fuel before it changed. So you do tend to be very much in tune with your environment there, because you have to really, you know, you have to make good decisions, and because you haven't got the backups you normally do, they've got to be the right decisions at the right time, at the right place. So you do feel very much more in tune with the environment when you're out there.
Really exposed headlands. We've come and we're arrived at this little hut. So Scoresby Sun is around the corner. And there's a big swell running today. We're on the open ocean again, and we've had lots of interesting headlands and tide to deal with as we've been going round. So glad to be here. We know we've done the crux now. The worst that can happen is we'll get trapped in here with some big swell, but we haven't got far to get back into Scoresby Sun now, so giving us that extra time to do it. Bit colder, Simon, eh?
Oh, too right. It's a bit of a chilling easterly breeze, which doesn't look like it's bringing anything too pleasant with it either.
No, nothing's good or bad news about that.
Yeah, the cultural side of it. Obviously, Scoresby Sun's an interesting place because it's sort of got 2 cultures. It's got the European culture from the Danish influence, and they have their own little social life. But if you're going to go somewhere, you've got to go and see how the locals do it. So we went to the local bar, and it was very interesting. Yeah, it hadn't been long since they'd got a consignment of beer, so pretty much they were just there to enjoy themselves, and they just drank and danced all night long, and we just joined in. It was really good. You know, they didn't seem to have they had no inhibitions. They were just quite happy to get in there, dance as badly or as madly as they wanted to, and it was just a really fun, enjoyable night with no hassles. Nobody trying to beat you up, nobody trying to make any points, and just have a really good evening.
I think we go to these places for the journey and for the place. So in terms of our impact on the local community, you know, we ship boats out and we ship all the food out, and the idea is to get there and then to head off on our journey, being completely self-contained and having as little impact as we can on the environment as possible. There obviously is an interaction with the community, and I think that's an equally important part of the trip. But I think generally they've responded to the sort of journeys we're doing in the kayaks very well. They like the idea that we're going out and seeing their country and being involved in some form of journey, adventure type thing. We're away for most of the time we're there anyway, and we come back, and they seem generally glad to see us and to find out what we've been up to. So that interaction is slightly different, and as Simon said, when we went to the bar, they all, it's a small community, they all knew that we were the kayakers who'd been out for a month, so that did make the interaction, I think, different than just being a tourist turning up, and banging a few shots off and disappearing on the boat. So yeah, I think we tend to go there to have a positive effect.